Good evening. I'm audible, I'm visible. Yes. Good evening, good evening. If I'm audible, I'm not visible. If I'm visible, I'm not audible. Just refresh. It should not be a problem. I'm getting my preview ready here also. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening. No problem, sir. Very good, Rashida. If there's no problem, nothing better. Good evening, good evening. Yes, I am audible, I'm visible. I can see myself there. Very good. Okay. So today we cover something very interesting. We've been talking about this country quite a lot, but we will discuss Russia today. And more than that, we also have to discuss a very important module, which is ideologies, in which we will discuss Marxism, Leninism, what is communism, what is socialism. So we'll reach there maybe within the next 30 minutes. Once I've discussed the ideologies, then I'll come back to Russia and we'll do the Russian Revolution, which is nothing but the October Revolution of 1917 is called the October Revolution. Maoism is of no relevance to us. I will tell you what Maoism is in the last class, but it's just a extension of Leninism. Okay. Good evening. Sir, Italy attacked Austria. Who told them to attack? Britain and France. So today's agenda very straightforward. How to make notes, Sakshi, for this or for generally you're asking me? How did France and Britain go into alliance? Priyanka, this is called mutual interests. Both were enemies, but when it came to countering Germany, they came together. Yeah, one very straightforward thing. As you remember, because Tuesday was a holiday, accidental holiday, we have a class on Saturday now. So tomorrow is Friday. We will meet as per our time, which is 5 to 8:30. But on Saturday, please pay attention. I'm writing it here. We will meet at 6:30 in the morning. 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. is going to be our class. For the people who think it is evening, please note it is 6:30 a.m. 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. I'll go from 6:30 to 9:30. Then I'll give you maybe a short break, or I'll go from 6:30 to 9. Half an hour break I will give in between. 30 minutes break I will give so that you can have your breakfast in that regard. Breakfast break, and thereafter we'll finish by 11:30. And 3rd October is going to be our last class, as always, 5 to 8:30 p.m. So our last class is going to be that. Now, one more thing. 7 to 11:30. I said 6 to 11:30 also. I made it neither here nor there. Now comes the issue related to the doubt class. So on 7th October, which is next to next Saturday, this Saturday is 30th, and then it is 7th October. You will have what is called a doubt session. But the doubt session, there are certain rules. And the rule is that any doubt which I take on that day, you would have to send it to iaslive@byju's.com, and in the subject, write down world history doubt session question. So the team will easily be able to take out all your questions. These can be big questions, can be small questions, and you may not have a question that is not that you have to come in the 7th October class. It's totally on you. I would just want you to just write this in the subject of the email so that it is easy for them to take it out of the thousands of emails which we get every day. Doubt session time, most probably we'll keep it in the evening. The way it is, which is that we'll keep it between 5 to 8:30 p.m. As of right now, that is tentative. I can change it as per my need or as per your need. We'll see for that. How to this, and generally also making notes. Sakshi will talk about that. So the point is, please pay attention. 30th September, last day of September. This is not an extra class. This is basically making up for the Tuesday class, which was given to you as a holiday because of Bangalore month. And now 30th September, we're making it. The time is morning 6:30 to 11:30. And thereafter, 3rd October is going to be our last class, in which we will do the uh, colonization, decolonization model, or the module itself. And thereafter, we will go for doubt session on 7th October. It is 5 hours, no, 4.5 hours in a way, 30 minutes and 10 minutes here and there. I'm giving you close to 40-45 minutes of break also in that regard. So very simply, straightforward. The You will ask me, why am I doing it in the morning? Because I have to stop before the Saturday weekend batch starts, which is, it starts at 12 to 8, it is there. So I have to stop by 11:30, and it is not in my hand that I can take it in the evening. I can't parallelly run a session with regards to the weekend batch. So I'm doing it before the weekend batch. And 7th October doubt session, 5 to 8:30 p.m. I will tell you that before the last class, what is the time we have designated for that. But as you know, for any doubt I take, I don't take random doubts. You would have to send it to islive@byju's.com. And in that, you would have to very simply in the subject line write World History Doubt Session question. Clear, everybody? As it is, all sessions are recorded. If for some reason, because you can't get up early, you have to do something in the morning, you don't want to get up early, sir, not early, late, you can watch it as per your convenience before 3rd October. And as it is the last class related to this interconnected. We'll talk about World War II and we'll talk about Cold War politics. If I attend the weekend batch, then should I repeat the same subject again in the evening? Stuti, that is not given. You can, there are 3 batches which run. You are allowed to be part of any of these batches for your revision. But if you've done that in one batch, doesn't really matter. Students tend to be in multiple batches, which is they'll do morning also, they'll do evening also, they'll do weekend also, thinking something else will happen. But the same thing is taught in all 3 batches. If you've done one, you don't have to go into the other. You are given access to 7 batches for all subjects, and that is only for your purpose of revision. If you want to revise, there is no compulsion to come in all batches. That is not something which is expected also, but you can do it. That is your that is a luxury of being part of this system. 7 times you can do the same thing. Are we clear with regards to the extra class and everything? Yes, Chandrajyoti, I can't do that, is part and parcel of this. Okay. So Saturday, 30th September, 6:30 to 11:30, and 7th October, doubt session. For that, send it to IS Live. World History doubt session question, write it down in the email. And 3rd October is our last class. Today we start module number 7. This is module number 7. We will do tomorrow 8 and 9. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are connected. Thereafter 10 is standalone. Okay. Yes, Jhansi, we will discuss previous year questions. For that, I have to reach a certain point, which I'm reaching. So I'll do previous year questions. I've taken that 1 hour out extra for Saturday for the same reason, so that I can discuss these smaller things with you. We'll discuss all previous year questions. I will discuss all the questions which have come. Don't have to worry about that. Totally my prerogative. Don't worry. Right? Okay. So today's topic is the Russian Revolution. And whilst we've been talking about Britain, we talked about France, we talked about America, we've talked about Germany, we've talked about Italy, we talked about the Ottomans. One country which was a very important actor, but we haven't talked about them, is Russia. So this session, we have 2 basic things to understand. What happens between 1890 to 1917, that Russia goes through a certain period of churn. And the second would be to understand Marxism, Leninism, and the concept of socialism and communism, which I will do in between. So there are 3 parts to this lecture. First part will go from 1890 to 1905. Then we'll talk about these, and then we'll take the story from 1905 to 1970. That is how we are going to proceed generally. That is the basic thing we will do. So if everybody is ready, we'll talk about, yes, we are going to study. We'll talk about Lenin and Stalin both today. So can we start our discussion? Everybody is comfortable. Everybody is ready. Everybody understands what is happening generally. Start. Start, sir. Start. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay. Now pay attention. Let's talk about Russia. Let's talk about Russia. Now, when we talk about Russia as a country, the problem with Russia is that it's a very vast area. It's a very vast area. And to give you a basic picture of that vastness, this is Russia for you. So on the one side, you have the Pacific, and on the other side, you have the North Sea, or rather what we call the Baltic Sea. Then you also have the Arctic Ocean. So you have the Pacific Ocean, you have the Arctic Ocean. But very simply, the problem of Russia is, and I'm now right now establishing the geography here, that you have the Ural Mountains, which are there in between Russia generally. These are Ural Mountains, they're called. And whilst they have the Baltic Sea here, most of their cities are in the European sector, which is, it is towards Europe or in the Western sector. So Moscow, St. Petersburg, Minsk, Kiev, which are now not part of Russia but were part of the Russian Empire previously. You would know them as the capitals of other countries. But from Warsaw to Riga to Moscow to Kazan to Rostov-Don, all are very major cities. All are major cities. Now the problem which Russia generally has geographically is that population is concentrated here. And this Russian Empire on the north has a sea, the Barents Sea, which freezes in the, or is frozen most of the time, and they don't have the technology right now to break through what are called ice breakers. So this is frozen. The issue I know Kiev is the capital of Ukraine, but Ukraine came into existence only after 1917 and basically after 1992 properly. So I know what I'm saying. Don't worry. I've added Finland also. If you realize, Poland, Finland, and a lot of different other countries are also part. But right now, this is Russia for you. I'm discussing Russia on the eve of, or we are discussing Russia in 1800. So please pay attention. All the different the Belarus, Azerbaijan, you have Turkmenistan, the what we call as Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all are part of these. Stans are all part of Russian Empire. So we are talking about Russia in 1800. So as I said, the Barents Sea is frozen most of the period. And the problem is that the Baltic Sea is also not something which remains frozen for the most part of the year, but is a problem because the whole sector from Helsinki to St. Petersburg, this is the most important port which they have in the northern hemisphere, and in this latitude. After a point, the Baltic Sea will also become a problem for the Russians. So for the Russians, the problem is that on their western sector, they are in a way seasonal, or have seasonal access to the seas. So their biggest challenge is to come into the Atlantic. So they enter the Atlantic Ocean, they have to go through this sector, but this sector will basically freeze after a certain point in the winters. And the only all-weather port we call is Sevastopol, which is in modern-day Crimea. And the reason why the Crimean Peninsula was conquered by or annexed by the Russians by the Russians in 2014. The problem with Sevastopol is other thing, because they have to now go through the Ottoman Empire into the Aegean Sea, then into the Mediterranean. So this is also a problem. And the last major all-weather port which they have is on the other side of the world itself, which is Vladivostok. So the problem is that here, Vladivostok, Vladivostok is in the Pacific. St. Petersburg is more or less not having access because of the basic seasonality of, or the freezing of the Baltic Sea, and Sevastopol is the only way they can go through. So the point is that the Russians have a very, very, very big empire, but it is more or less useless when it comes to strategic location. Except for this sector, all their sectors are bound by problematic landscape. And the further problematic aspect of Russia is, after the Ural sector, and the most of the part of this sector is the Siberian sector, which is the Siberian winters. So it's a cold desert. And the temperatures here can go up to -60, -30. It is very cold. So most of their agriculture also happens in this sector. Most of their agriculture also happens in this sector. So as you can see, and what I'm trying to establish is, for the Russians, their west is very important. And for them, Sevastopol is important. But the Ottoman Empire is the reason why Sevastopol is also a problematic port. So what I've tried to establish till this point is, when we talk about Russia, it has a vast empire in the form of the Russian Empire. But the problem is West dominated landscape. It is in the western sector that you have all major cities, and also the agricultural sector is also concentrated in west. Third, the ports are mostly bound by either seasonal or climatic issues or problematic neighbors. For example, the Ottomans. So if I was Russia, would I be really happy about having such a big empire? Or is this actually a useful empire? So, not so much. See, it is like basically ruling Antarctica. It is basically ruling Antarctica. You have a very big area, but what do you do with it? So the Russians have a problem that they have a very big empire. It projects a lot of power, but in a way, most of their empire is useless. So geographically, a vast empire is also not good for administrative purposes. Understand this point, that when it comes to transportation and movement between east and west, many days, long journey, and the only thing which they actually have is called the Trans-Siberian Railways. Trans-Siberian Railways, part of a lot of novels and a lot of different movies. But this is also very, very inefficient and slow because of the temperatures. Because of the temperatures, can't run at a very quick pace. Can't run at a very quick pace. So if I had to go from the west to the east, it could take me close to 15 to 20 days to cross all of Russia. So geographically, the advantage of Russia is also its disadvantage. Having a very big empire, but also the problem is then movement within the empire is problematic. Geographically, anybody has any issue? Geographically, anybody has any issue? No? So I'm setting the scene right now. Now let's talk about politically and socially. It's called Siberian winter because Siberia is a place. Winter in Siberia, Siberian winter. Okay. Now, politically and socially, the issue is that you have the Tsar, who is the king. He is basically an absolutist monarch. So, all power is concentrated here. The Tsars come from a dynasty called the Romanov dynasty. Has nothing to do with the other Romanov which you know. The Romanov dynasty. And Tsar Alexander I, Nicholas I, and Nicholas II are the people in question. The Russian Revolution will happen during the period of Nicholas II. Where have we discussed Nicholas I? Where have we discussed Nicholas I? Very good. The issue in the Crimean War. And Tsar Alexander I is important for the social policies. Nobody wants to know their dates, and I really don't want to tell you their dates. Just remember Alexander I, Nicholas I, Nicholas II. Now, under the Tsar, there is something called the Duma. It's called the Duma. Duma is the Russian word for parliament. Is the Russian word for parliament. But this is a totally fake and non-representative body, basically a drama of the Tsar to show that he has a representative body under him. Basically, it really has no power. Duma is appointed by the Tsar himself. If you disagree with the Tsar, as it is, you will be thrown out. So very simply, Tsar or the king, very simply straightforward, does not actually represent any form of representation. We can't write exam that Duma is drama of the Tsar. Firstly, you will not be asked to write it, and if you're writing it, you're not doing a crime. So don't worry. You don't. I'm telling it for your understanding. You write it as a non-representative body. But if you will write it, it's not that they will say, how can you say that Duma is Russian history? I don't care about the Russians. Neither will the examiner. So very straightforward. It is a drama of the Tsar to show that he has representative body and Tsar has all the power. Does this bring a deja vu for you? When I'm telling you about Russia, does it bring a deja vu? Deja vu is that you've seen it somewhere. Have you seen this type of drama somewhere? A deja vu type moment? Yes, very good. Our beloved constitutional writing freaks, the French. The French, same standard concept, which is that they had all this drama of having a state general, this and that. But very simply, the all power was concentrated in. As I'll take you further, you will realize that the story is not too far away. So politically, Tsar is the real power, and the biggest thing politically is, everybody is with me till this point, no issues, not very hard to understand, same pattern is there everywhere. Okay, now try to understand this politically. One more thing is there, that the czars project a lot of power. They argue and show off the Russian Empire as a mighty, undefeatable empire, and the Tsar is like God and has divine power and sanction. So if I am living in Russia, for a common man, Tsar is very powerful, and Russia is the ultimate example of powerful, stable polity. You don't have to, Sudaresh, let me tell you what is going to come in the examination. You cannot write in flowcharts, but all this is for your understanding. You want me to write it in the exam form, that's a separate issue altogether. Understand it. So if I'm a common Russian, when I look towards Tsar, I should feel threatened, or I should feel useless, or that he's not powerful. I should not be scared. Should I be scared of the Tsar if I'm living in Russia? Yes, threatened, scared, fully. But the real strength of Russia comes from its social policy. From its social policy. Now, I'll show you this map, and the colors which you see represent ethnicities. So Russia is a very ethnically diverse state. If you can see, it has Russians, the red color which you see. It has Ukrainians. It has Belarusians, which is nothing but Belarusians. Thereafter, you have Tatars, Uzbeks, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, Turkmens, Turkish people. If that was not enough, the Gregorians or the Ingush, the Gadesh, the different types of smaller nationalities or ethnicities are there. So Russia is a very, very diverse nation, very diverse, extremely diverse. So when I talk about the polity and society and the geography comes with this, that it is a very big geography, inconvenience, the Tsar being very powerful, Duma and the parliament is a drama, and the Tsar projects power. But the biggest issue which generally Russia is ethnically diverse because of its vast size and area. Now more diversified than India in a way, yes. Much bigger than India, but much more diverse than India because of the smaller minorities which are there. Atharva, I'll tell you. Now tell me one thing. If I was an Ottoman, what would I do with the ethnic minorities? What would I do with the ethnic minorities? If I was an Ottoman, would I convert all of them to the Ottoman or Ottomanize them? No, I would make them second class citizens, but I will never Ottomanize them. I will not convert them. I will not push my culture onto them. And that was, and can I say in a way, that was one of the biggest weaknesses of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was weak because of the fact that it allowed for ethnic minorities to have their individuality. Can I say that? Can I say that the ethnic minorities were the problem for the Ottomans? That they allowed for the Ottomans to, or the Ottomans allowed them to have a identity. So while the Ottomans never pushed their culture on the minorities, their minorities included the Romanians, the Bulgarians, the Serbians. Here it is the ethnic minorities in the form of the Uzbeks, the Tatars, the Turkmenis, the Turks, the general population of what we call as the Ukrainians, the Georgians. You have multiple. But this was the weakness of Ottoman Empire, and that was also an agent of change. So the change which came in the Ottoman Empire came because of the rising nationalism within the minorities. But the Russians were quite different. Russians were exactly the opposite of the Ottomans. And when it came to its ethnic minorities, Russians followed the policy of Russification. Russification. Not pushing culture was good, whereas treating them second generation it was bad. Is it not? Who are we to judge? But that is the way Ottomans did it. They didn't convert them, but they gave them a secondary position. You and me cannot judge it by the modern standards. According to them, that is what it is. So don't judge. It is not the job of a historian to judge. Is it justified? It is good? Is it bad? No. That is the policy they followed. Their greatest strength was also their weakness. But the Russians were exactly the opposite. The ethnic minorities here Russians forced their culture on the ethnic minorities. So what happened in Russia was, under Tsar Alexander I, all minorities were in a way made to think like a Russian. They used to drink like a Russian. They used to dress like a Russian. They used to eat like a Russian. And their languages were also taken away from them. So if you are an ethnic minority, if you resist the policy of Russification, your property will be confiscated and you'll be sent to the jail. But if you don't resist and you accept, the point which is there in Russia is it is homogeneous. There is homogeneity because of the policy of Russification. So the social policy of the Russians was exactly the opposite of the Ottomans. Now this means that the Russians, the problem of nationalism will never emerge. So therefore, problem of nationalism was minimal, because wherever it came to nationality, they are Russified. At least they are made to think like a Russian. So if I bring the political and social together, politically and socially, if I bring it together, Tsar is very powerful within Russia. Tsar projects a lot of power, and over and above that, the Russians have pushed their culture on ethnic minorities, which is nothing but Russification. And in the end, the issue is that no diversity, no issue of containing nationalism. So in a way, the Russians have eliminated the biggest factor of change in Europe, which was either political or economic or what we call as cultural nationalism. So cultural nationalism is more or less non-existent because Russification has made them equally alike. Is this 2 points making sense? Is this making sense? Come on, these 2 points. Everybody has to say yes. Then I go into where the actual change is going to come from. Anybody has any issue in these 2 points? Come on. No? No issue? Come on, you have to be more straightforward. Was this intentional? Totally intentional. Intentional policy. Well, intentional. Very properly followed intentional policy. I first said that they were very diverse. Obviously, they are diverse. They are ethnically diverse, but they are made very homogeneous. Irrespective of Russification, ethnic diversity is there. Diversity is there, but eliminated. So I know what I said. Don't worry about that. The simple, straightforward point is that ethnic diversity, in a way, you tell me one thing. Can you fully convert a person to zero? Can you fully convert some? Fully. 100% you can do it. No. So the Uzbeks, the what we call as the Tatars or the Turkmenis, they still hold a little bit. It's a psychological conversion. You can call it that. So nationalistic feeling can rise. But what will the Russians do? They will suppress. You fear the state. There's a fear of the state. And please, when I say conversion, please come out of the British understanding of only religious conversion. We somehow only think of it like conversion can only happen religiously. Cultural conversion is also there. And most of you, half of us, at least 80% of India, if not 50%, we have got culturally converted. And that culture we adopt today is American. From the way we speak, what we eat, how we dress, how most of you have no idea of Indian culture only. I will start to take names of martial arts, or even the names of puppetry, or even the names of basic theater groups in India, and it will seem as it is a foreign language for you. When I will teach you art and culture, you will see that globalization is a form of cultural conversion only. It is a part of cultural conversion. You know more about the Avengers, you will know more about Harry Potter, you will know more about K-pop culture, you will know more about American culture. But if I ask you to write 15 lines about Indian culture, you have no idea. So cultural conversion happens. That is, cultural homogeneity happens. So we don't have to dwell on this point too much. We can understand this, that political of the state is there. But can I say that the Russian Empire is as weak as the Ottomans when it comes to ethnic diversity? No. Don't be maybe. Kya hota hai? What is maybe? No. The strength of the Ottomans was also their weakness. And very simply, here the weakness has been eliminated to some level. Why nationalist feeling did not rise when minorities' culture was suppressed? It was Devans there. They were shot. You think Russians are going to ask, okay, you want to protect your culture? Russians took out their gun and shot everybody who said that we don't want to get Russified. So this policy has been followed since the late 1700, since 1600, but the one who properly systematized it was Alexander I. So the point is that your 2023 Indian citizen, the constitutional person, is saying, I can resist it. But in Russia, you either get the gun or you take the Russian vodka and drink it. So very straightforward. Can I move to economic? Because we are spending too much time here. Politically, Tsar is very powerful. He projects power. Fear of state is there. And people, the minorities, have got Russified. What I'm trying to show you here is, while the Ottoman Empire, the way of change came because of nationalism. In Russia, nationalism can't do anything. That is what I'm trying to establish. In every country, there was a agent of change, which is, in America, it was economic exploitation. In France, it was the issues with the Louis I and the problems of how the three estate model worked. And in the Ottoman Empire, it was because of the problem of nationalism. That is why the ticking time bomb nobody wanted to hold. But in Russia, if I tell you right now, if you look at this situation right now, you think that Russia will change ever? Or is there any scope or weakness which you can see in the Russian Empire? No. Unlikely, or quite likely, the Russian Empire is stable that way. It is stable that way. Now, let's talk about economics, or how is Russia economically? How is Russia economically? Can I do that? Everybody's on the same page with me. It's not difficult. It's very straightforward. And you will see it will turn out to be like France only in a way. But the characters change, the name changes. Okay. Now, economically, the aristocrats, or we will say aristocracy, the relatives of the king, nobility, they hold most of the land and are very wealthy Now, when we talk about the peasants, till 1860, serfdom existed, which is bonded labor feudal system, whilst after 1860 they were emancipated, but were bound by redemption payments. Now you will say, what redemption payment, this redemption payment, that redemption payment. So let me explain it to you. Now, in a feudal system, you have a vassal A, and then you have a small person or a B who's a serf or bonded labor. Here the bondage is social bondage, that you are bounded by, or you are, we will say rather, you are attached to the landlord who is giving you this land to cultivate, and everything is taken by him, and the bonded labor at the side can do subsistence agriculture. Which is that on this small part he can also grow something for himself. Something for himself. Would it be right to call it social bondage? Would it be right to call it social bondage, or social plus economic bondage? It's a social economic bondage. You are economically reliant on the vassal because he gives you land, and you are socially bonded to the vassal or the landlord. You would have seen it for sure in rural India till today. People are bonded to some landlords. Malguzars have no other option but to work for a landlord. The landlord gives them a certain amount of land on which they do subsistence agriculture, which is agriculture for their own subsistence, not for the market. They need 2 kgs, they will grow 2 kgs. But 99% of everything is from the landlord. You would have seen it for sure. Don't act like you've come from England, which is that the type of bondage we have in India is actually based on social bondage, that I have been cultivating for him for a very long time, very long time, and therefore I can do it again. So people who are asking me to repeat, pay attention, because I'm only speaking English 2 times, but one time you don't understand, the second time you understand. The difference is concentration. So understand this point, that there is the feudal system. There's the feudal system. Within the feudal system, under one landlord, there could be thousands of bonded laborers, serfs, and they are bounded to the landlord via social and economic bondage. Because if this person is going to go, and you are saying, is he a tenant? A tenant has an option to change his landlord. Here, there is no concept of change. Once you go under a vassal, you will remain under that vassal forever. So you can't change it. The tenant concept is where you call it tenant, or a person who produces for someone else, agricultural labor. There is choice. There is no choice here. There's no choice. You have to work under this vassal, and that is the relationship you are in. There's nothing very big here. Very straightforward. Very straightforward. Vassal gives you land. If vassal has land, you will work on that land. 99% of everything will be taken. He will give you something to eat. And that is it. It is a bonded relationship. Social because you don't have choice. Are we clear with regards to this? how a feudal system looks like. It has nothing to do with slavery. Slavery doesn't work like this. So till 1860, this is how Russia looks like. But what happens is that in 1860, there is a person called Slompin. I will tell you, he is the prime minister. And Slompin brings in what is called as the emancipation of serfs, which is that they have been freed. They've been freed. But the Russian landlords were very, 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 very smart. Now, when I have now, I was a person who could only cultivate for vassal A. And tomorrow the government says, okay, now you don't have to work for vassal A. Social bondage is gone. Social bondage is gone. No social bondage. But if I'm a peasant, if I'm a person who has done agriculture all his life, then what will I do? Once I become socially non-bonded with that person, now what will I do? The problem is that I have no land because I was not given a wage. I have no property. I have no assets. I have nothing. The only thing I can do is agriculture. So the landlord said, okay, do one thing. The landlord said, landlord, A vassal now is a landlord. He says one thing. B, you only know how to do agriculture. Okay, I give you this land. You buy this land from me. But to buy something, you need money. You need money. But B doesn't have money. So what the vassal says is, or A says, is that you pay through producing and selling in market. Basically, an EMI. Basically, an EMI. And that EMI in Europe was called, or in Russia was called, redemption payments. By I'm redeeming that land and I'm paying an EMI. This is what the bank does. This is what the bank does. The bank here is the landlord. He says, okay, you take the land which you were producing and you pay when you have money. But now tell me one thing. Will B be able to clear the land cost very quickly? No. So is it not in a way that they have moved away from social bondage and gone into economic debt bondage? Would I have a right to say that I have moved away from social bondage to a debt trap? So very simply, when I said to you that till 1860, they are in social plus economic bondage. Now tell me one thing, does the emancipation do anything for the peasant? Does it do anything for the peasant? Zero. Nothing. So very simply, the social bondage is over, but economic bondage remains. It is a debt trap. So basically, for the peasants, nothing really changes. Now, the peasants might get profits after selling, sure, but that profit has to go into EMI. If your salary is 15,000 and 10,000 is needed to run the family, and EMI is 5,000. You are in a debt trap. You are in a debt trap because you can't go anywhere. So for the peasant, they are poverty stricken, and very simply, the artisans and workers have very low wages, harsh conditions. So very simply, if I bring all of these stories together, if I bring all of these stories together, political plus economic plus social, if I bring all of them together, I can very successfully and correctly say the following: vast empire with no real resources and administrative issues, movement in empire is problematic and long. Tsar projects a lot of power and fear of state is there. Russification eliminates nationalism. Fifth, peasant, artisans, and people are under distress. Six, Tsar, nobles, and aristocracy are enjoying wealth and power. Can I come to the six conclusions? Anybody has anything to challenge, say, or not understand in this? Not very, very difficult to understand that ways. Six straightforward things which we have seen previously also. Which you've seen previously also. So if I come to these six conclusions, does anybody have any issue here? If you've not said till now, repeat yes, no. You see it, say it right now. Is this clear? Yes or no? Yes, the French Revolution, but in Russia. Yes, social, political, economic as a whole in Russia. Yes. So yes, perfect. Okay, crystal clear. Who are artisans? The people who manufacture small things. Workers are also there. 4 and 6, Russification eliminates nationalism because Russification makes all of them homogeneous, so nationalism won't work. And 6 is that Tsar, nobles, aristocracy enjoy wealth and power. That is something which a lot of people enjoy in India. That is not an issue. Point 2, please, which is that movement in the empire problematic. Trans-Siberian Railway is very slow, takes time to move from west to east. Third point, सारे बोल दो फिर. Tsar projects a lot of power and fear of the state is there. Very simply, the political power is very, very strong, and the Tsar is the absolute monarch. Now, 3, 4, 5. So I'll do vast empire. The empire is problematic because it's very big, so people take time to move from one side to the other. Tsar projects a lot of power, fear of state is there. Russification, which is that all ethnic minorities have been Russified, so no nationalism. Peasant, artisans, and people are under distress because of the issues in the society itself. Tsar, nobles, aristocracy enjoy wealth and power. Anybody any issue now? I've repeated all the points again. It is self-explanatory, but still you want me to repeat, so I have repeated. Can I now start the Russian Revolution? Has taken me 1 hour to create the context. This is the context. There is nothing big we've done till this point. It's all context to understand Russia. Yes? Okay. Now please pay attention. Now the Tsar talks of very big things. Mighty, big, Very, very big. Oil reserves are of no purpose to Snehata. You and me know that they have oil reserves. Czar has no idea if there is any oil reserves. Crude oil, shale gas, that is not a resource as of right now. Coal matters, coal they have, but they don't have a lot of resources that way. So no use of crude oil right now. I know you know, but that is of no purpose. It is the 1800s. So understand. Now, the point is, it looks like Russia would never change only. It looks like that Russia would never change only because the Russians are in a way foolproof. But the change are going to come in perception. The change will come through perceptions and repeated humiliation. Now, how do I say he repeated humiliation? See, in 1853-56, Crimean War, the mighty Russians fought with the Ottomans. What happened to them? As soon as Britain entered, they had to run away. So, Russians humiliated in Crimean War. If that was not enough, in 1875-78, Great Eastern Crisis, again Russians lost and humiliated. The Black Sea has already got deep. So one thing is very, very clear, that there is a hollowness to the political claims. We, the Russians, Russia does not have colonies. Russia does not have colony, too big an empire. As it is useless, how will they get colonies? Some chutmut 1, 2, 3 will be there somewhere, but they are of no purpose to us. The point is very simple, straightforward. Russians project power. Mighty Russia. Yes, very, 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 very powerful Russia. Tsar is a divine person. They got humiliated by Britain and France here also. And if that was not enough, here the Ottoman Empire plus Germany. And Britain, France, as always, are already there. So, in a way, the westward expansion or plans of Russia were never going to materialize. Were never going to materialize. But one thing is very, very clear, that in this map, the Germans and the Austrians and the Ottomans are checking the power of Russia in this sector. And I can very successfully say to you, that very simply, west or westward movement of empire was not possible because of powerful European states. Can I come to this conclusion? Can I come to this conclusion successfully? Is this true or false? Is this true or false? I have demonstrated that to you previously also. I've demonstrated that to you previously also. Now, the Russians try to industrialize, but it is state sponsored and more or less superficial. More or less superficial. Opening 2 factories does not make you an industrial power. Ottomans were not powerful, but you know, Santosh, that they were backed by the British and the French. So as you move forward, don't forget what you've done or learned previously. So now Russia or Russians start to realize the the hollowness of Tsar's power and Russia's big claims. But the biggest thing which will happen, is when Russia will look towards the east. And herein comes Manchuria. Herein comes Manchuria. See, you have Russia here, you have Russia here, you have Japan here, you have China here. And there's a small, very fertile sector, this whole sector. This is called Manchuria. This is called Manchuria. This is Manchuria. And Manchuria basically is part of China, but not fully under control. Not fully under control. Korea, forget about Korea. Korea part of China as of right now and has its distinct culture. But the period we're talking about, Korea is developing separately. I don't care about the Koreans. What I care about is that the Manchurian sector is something which two powers are interested in. Two powers are interested in. Russia also wants Manchuria, and the very aggressive Japanese also want Manchuria. The Japanese will start to become very, very aggressive. They will be emerging as an industrial power. So they will now start to gain an appetite. Manchuria is going to be the first one. Then they will also take over lots of parts of China. They will also dominate the Korean peninsula. The whole issue between Japan and Korea, which is that Japan dominated Korea for a very long time. Manchuria is important because of its agriculture. Agriculture and fertile land. Fertile land. Now, in a battle between Russia and Japan, you would put your money on the Russians or the Japanese? Some of you believe in the Japanese, some of you believe in the, most of you don't believe in the Russians. So the story is very straightforward. Russia and Japan have a conflict in 1904, which is called the Russo-Japanese War. And because most of the army of the Russians was sitting in the west and they had to bring it to the east, by the time Russia could actually mobilize its army and then put them on Trans-Siberian Railway, and they reached the first, second, or third station of the Trans-Siberian Railway, Japan won and signed a treaty with the British, Americans, and French, and got recognition also of Manchuria, and Russia was excluded. Now see, if in cricket India loses to England, to New Zealand, to Australia, you're like, it's okay. Very good cricket playing nations. England, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, now not, but it's okay. दर्द होता है, pains, but it's okay. That was this era for the Russians. That was this era for the Russians. That okay, भाई किससे हार के आए? Who did you actually lose to? British and France. So ठीक, makes sense. Now this is the equivalent of India losing to Mongolia or Nepal in cricket. Not even Nepal, but to Mongolia, which just lost to Nepal recently. And this is like Russia is this big. Japan, hundreds or thousands of Japans could fit in Russia. Now you are such a big power. Big power. And who do you lost to? Japanese. 1904, the Russians were flabbergasted. They were actually not able to understand what happened. Here our army says we are the best. Russian army, Russians are powerful. Japanese से हार के आ गए. That they lost to the Japanese. And now the catalyst for change is going to come from here. Once the Russians lose to the Japanese and their eastward expansion was now checked by an island nation 1/100th its size, Japan. Now people now fully believe that Russia needs to change. And all power projected is hollow, and Tsar Nicholas II is useless. Can we all come to this conclusion ourselves also? Now what will happen? Everybody's with me till this point? Everybody's with me till this point. Anybody has any issue? Are you now understanding why I've been building up for 1 hour? What I've been building up to 1 hour? Yes? Okay. Reason for Russian? No. Reason for not Russian Revolution. Still in 1904. 1917 is Russian Revolution. Now, pay attention. Please pay attention. Russia humiliated in 1800 to 1890 period by British and French. Russia humiliated in 1900 to 1910 period by, rather not even 10, 5 years, by Japan. Now people come on the streets with change in their mind. They want civil rights, they want civil liberties, plus they want democratic nationalism, democratic government. This is also called political nationalism. This is called political nationalism. What type of nationalism do we call this? Political nationalism. And they want the Tsar to step down. And on 22nd January 1905, there were 2 to 3,000 people who had gathered around the palace of Tsar. Now the police and the military asked Tsar Nicholas II, what should we do with the 2 to 3,000 people who are asking for change on the streets? Lot of demonstration, protests will happen. There will be demonstrations. Now Nicholas II only has one solution for all these problems. लाख दुखों की एक दवा. He said, shoot them. Shoot them. If they are not dispersing, shoot them. They are not dispersing, shoot. And on 22nd January 1905, police and military shot at people. 500 to 600 people dead. And this is called Sunday or the Bloody Sunday. It was a Sunday. It's called the Bloody Sunday event, which is open fire on people. And once 5 to 600 people die, now the military generals who basically control everything, they say to Nicholas II, have to give concessions or people will rebel and destroy power. So basically, now Tsar Nicholas II has no other option. But to actually accept what the military generals are saying, because the military was still loyal to Nicholas II. But now the people lost it after Bloody Sunday. It's like the Jallianwala Bagh incident. If you would think like Chauri Chora, it's a very ground-breaking moment, a very, very critical moment that was. A very critical moment that was. Very, very critical moment that was. So repeated humiliations from 1800 to 1905. And people are on the streets who are asking for civil liberties, democratic government, Tsar stepping down. On 22nd January 1905, on the Bloody Sunday event, 5 to 600 people are shot by the police. And now giving concession is necessary. Anybody has any issue in digesting this much? No. So the so-called drama is called the October Manifesto of 1905. Please understand this point. This is not the Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution happened in 1917. That is October Revolution. This is called the October Manifesto. Under the October Manifesto, Tsar Nicholas II made Russia a constitutional monarchy, gave civil liberties to the people, and now Duma was going to be elected by the people, and political parties could emerge and elections contest elections. But one thing should be very, very clear. He had no intention of actually transferring power. It's an eyewash, it's a drama to satisfy the people and reduce anger. Now, do you get it why in 1907 Britain is going to become ready to go into a alliance with Russia? Because what Nicholas II will now start to say to the world, I have changed. I have changed. I have made Russia a constitutional monarchy. I have given my people civil liberties. Now Duma elections can happen. Duma. Political parties can contest the elections. So he, though has no intention of actually doing anything concretely, he has to do a drama that he is changing Russia. Now, why is the October Manifesto of 1905 so important? Because of this point. Because political parties before this was actually not possible. And very simply, when it will come to the Dumas, in the first Duma which will be formed, the people will elect a Duma, and the Duma will try to take a little bit of power away from Nicholas II. So he will dissolve it. He will say too radical for me. The second Duma, he will then rig the elections, only allow landed class to vote. And when he will do that, again, second Duma will try to take a little bit of power away from Nicholas II. He will dissolve that also. A Duma which was appointed by both of them, appointed by him only in a way, but he will dissolve both. Then comes third Duma and fourth Duma, which is under a person called Prime Minister Slompin. It's called Slompin. Duma means parliament. Slompin knew how to maneuver around Nicholas II. So he was the only one who was actually able to have two terms, and he will also try to bring in reforms. He is actually the one who will try to bring in reforms. For example, he will try to cancel redemption payments. He will give some peasants land, but in Siberia. And very simply, he will try to change Russia. So first and second Duma, as these two were any act of taking away power from Nicholas II, he very simply dissolved them. I'll talk about them through the PPT also. But any act, he dissolved them. Acha, you want too much power, I'll take it away from you. So very simply, first and second Duma were dissolved very quickly because they said, okay, you want power from me? Okay, I'll dissolve you. But Slompin knew how to maneuver Nicholas II. But the problem with Slompin was that the Tsar will come under the influence of a person, a self-professed Baba of Russia. Anybody knows his name? The self-professed saint of yes, very good, Rasputin. Rasputin was basically like all Babas in India, a fraud. So he used to say that I'm a very, very religious, I can do miracles, this and that. But very simply, he used to influence the Tsar quite a lot. And when Rasputin was he never became the prime minister, he was never anything. But he impacted the Tsar's policies. And one day Rasputin says to the Tsar, don't you think Slompin is doing too much? And Rasputin will then get Slompin assassinated. Will get Slompin assassinated. And later, Rasputin will also get assassinated. So between 1910-12, one thing is very clear, that this constitutional experiment isn't working. But what is more important here is that in the same time, a person called Karl Marx was writing about socialism. And that will lead to the rise of socialist parties in Russia. And that is the story I need to tell you, that how does Karl Marx or Marxian ideas impact Russia. Simple, straightforward point. The act of the October Manifesto is important because that allows political parties to rise and new ideologies to come to Russia. And as it is, you can see people are getting assassinated and Russia is not going anywhere. If we all agree to this, I would like to read everything out of the PPT. I'll give you a break here because if I start Marxism right now, you will faint. So what I want is I can just read everything out, read till this point. Then I will talk about Marxism after a small break in that regard. Acceptable? Can I do it? For the people who what happened to Rasputin got killed. I don't care about him, but he got killed. I'm giving you all details. For the people who are looking for details, I'm going to give it to you. But I hope the basic story makes sense. What is the reason for October Manifesto and how Russia changed? If these two things make sense to you, then I would like to read it out to you. Okay, perfect. So who killed Rasputin? Nobody knows. Got killed Rasputin randomly. Marx from Germany or Russia? Marx is a German Jew, and I'll tell you, was sitting in England. I will tell you who is Marx, what is Marx, what is Marxism, what is that. Don't worry about that. Okay. Now, on the eve of the first change, which is October Manifesto, or we call it on the eve of the revolution. Eve means just one day before, Christmas Eve, one day before. Russia was an empire with nationalities such as Uzbeks, Jews, Poles, Finns, Tatars, Cossacks, Armenians, Russians, and it's an absolutist monarchy with the Tsar as the head. All these had diverse cultures which wished to protect it. Russia was politically powerful and had no sympathy for the minorities. And Tsar Alexander I followed a policy of Russification, which repressed the minorities and banned their languages and confiscated their property. Tsar Nicholas II came to power in 1894 of the Romanov dynasty. He had a parliament which was mostly recommendatory in nature, nothing really. And he had literally failed to manage the country militarily, economically, or politically. In all senses, he had failed in that regard. Now, society-wise, the Russian society came to be divided into two: aristocrats, peasants, and workers. The situation resembled those in France before the French Revolution itself. The peasants were part of the agricultural country called Russia, but the peasant condition was very pitiable. Emancipation in 1861 came at the condition of prolonged redemption payments. Majority of the peasantry lived in poverty and one third was landless, and other lived in fabulous riches. Worker condition equally bad. The industrial revolution, if you want to call it, did come, but it came with a lot of workers' misery. 270 striking gold miners were shot by the police in 1912. 8,000 strikes happened in Russia between 1912 and 14. And all of this was very favorable for Marx's ideas to develop, that I will explain to you what it means. At the same point of time, there were new ideas of liberty coming from the West. Writers such as Tolstoy, Dostoevsky drew attention towards the shortcomings of the state. Political awakening is happening, demand for political rights is happening. The ideas of Karl Marx is going to then become more and more relevant. Then that cannot happen until unless the first change will come through. The first change in will come when the Russo-Japanese War of 1904-1905 will happen, and Russia's expansionist policy in the Far East will be at the expense of China. Japanese will now go into a conflict with the Russians over Manchuria. Japanese imperialism in Korea was already quite well known. Japan secured several quick, swift victories over Russia in February of 1904. Russia could not transport its army because of the inefficient Trans-Siberian Railway. And Japan then secured its sovereignty or its control over Korea and Manchuria via the US and the UK. And at the Treaty of Portsmouth, Russia was excluded from Manchuria. So the Japanese were very quick in getting recognition from international powers also. Now, this will shock the Russians. And this is going to create the first thing, which is that the hollowness of the Russian claims to be a major power was showcased to the world. The divine position of the Tsar at home was destroyed and protests intensified. The Russian imperial ambition in the east was checked by the Japanese and in the west by Austro-Germany. Russia now embarked on modernization of communication and military, but that also is going to backfire because of the First World War. So a wave of protest is going to start across the Russian Empire in 1905. Workers, peasants, military mutinies, all will happen across this sector. It was ignited by police firings over protesting crowds, and that is called the Bloody Sunday event. The revolution failed because of the disunity of the opposition and the loyal military. However, now Tsar Nicholas II had no other option but to provide concessions to the October Manifesto. Now, when we talk about the October Manifesto, this is not 1805, 1905. On 17th October 1905, Tsar Nicholas II will give civil liberties to his citizens, create the first Duma, give universal suffrage in Duma elections, approve Duma, or the approval of Duma was necessary for all peasants. However, for all laws in that regard. However, the unfulfilled demands are going to remain there still. No abolition of redemption payments, no improvement of worker condition. The political prisoners are still there. Tsar had no intention of sticking to the manifesto generally. Thereafter, the Duma, when we talk about it, increasingly radical political parties appeared in the Duma. Tsar Nicholas II saw it as a continuous thorn in his side, basically kata, thorn, that he saw the Duma as a problem itself. When we come to the first Duma, elections were rigged. Only aristocrats were allowed to vote. He dissolved it when there were radical laws. Second Duma also happened, dissolved it once voting system was made stringent. Again, a little bit of two radical laws. He again dissolved it. But between 1907 to 1917, just before the Russian Revolution, the more conservative and longer lasting Duma did remain, and that was under the what we call as leadership of Slompin. Under this leadership of Slompin. Now we'll talk about ideologies later, just after the break. But what I want to discuss with you is the fact that Slompin, who will become the leader of the third and fourth Duma, which is under, he's the prime minister, he will do good for generally the Russians quite a lot. So he will go for redemption payments, which will be abolished. Large number of peasants will be given land in the Siberian sector. These new rich peasants will be called the kulaks. They will actually help the Russian Revolution later. Industrialist profits will increase just before the First World War. There was betterment in the condition of social schemes also. Slompin is the person. He's a person. He's Prime Minister Slompin. Slompin is a person. Now, universal education will also, you can call him anything. Stolpin, Slompin, Tolpin, Lolpin. He's not my uncle. I don't care. So you can call him anything. Vaishna, totally your call. How good your Russian is. Most probably is not even called Slompin. Something random he would be called. That is my favorite my way of pronouncing it, Slompin. You want to call him anything. Totally your call. You want to call him uh, Kaveri Amma. That is also okay. Not an issue. Okay. Now, universal education was introduced in Russia. Thereafter, Prime Minister Slompin will get murdered by the secret police because of Rasputin, who was a self professed holy man, becoming a power behind the throne itself. And he himself was known for too much drinking, promiscuity, and later he will also get murdered in 1916. But you can realize one thing, that between 1914 to 1916, Rasputin was very, 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 very active behind the throne itself. So he played a very important role in the throne. For the people who are still scratching their heads, I'll try to bring everything together. Can I do that? Can I do that? What do you have to actually remember? Can I tell you that and then we take a break, small break? Yes? Perfect. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. So straightforward. Russia, now you know how it is. So nobody really cares about the details. It is corrupt. There's a lot of power which the Tsar has. Lot of fear of the state, Russification, and it tends to project power. What I will write is just projects power and fear of state is there. Thereafter, we saw that nationalism could not destroy Russia or become a way of change or a means of change in that regard. So for them, very straightforward. The means of change was now going to be that between 1850 to 1878, two humiliations, and that two humiliations, is Crimean War and Great Eastern Crisis. Now, thereafter, the next humiliation is going to come in 1904, which is one major humiliation, and that is Russia versus Japan, and the Japanese will win, and that will show the hollowness of claims. This in turn will lead to major protests across throughout Russia, and that will lead to Bloody Sunday event. in which the police is going to open fire on people and people are going to die. That will lead to October Manifesto, and Russia becomes constitutional monarchy. And for us, Duma is active, political parties political parties are allowed. Whatever I have written on this slide, does it make sense? If it does, then we can take a break, because now I have to discuss something with you, which is Marxism, Socialism, Communism after the break. Yes? Anybody has any issue in this basic flowchart? No? Yes? Making sense. Great. So let's take a break. We'll come back at what? It is 42. 6:55 we can come back. I'm giving you 3 minutes extra. When we come back at 6:55, I want 150% attention. Drink coffee, drink tea, whatever you drink to become attentive. 6:55, the hardest thing I will explain to you, ideologies. 6:55, I will see you, and just try to revise what we've done till this point. So I will see you at 6:55. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. Ready, set? Some of you are absconding. Now, what will happen is that once I've built a flow, they will ask and say, repeat, not able to understand. So I'll give it a minute. I can wait for them maximum 1 more minute. But somehow people are absconding. So because Radhika, Sakshi, Rajvi, Abraham, Sayusha has joined right now. I think they left and they joined back. No issues. I have not started anything till this point. I want a flow. Yeah, Amrit, I'll tell you. Don't that word has a very different ways of explaining. For this and generally also notes making. Sakshi, you make notes by two basic rules. First, notes should not be equal to your book because a lot of students just note down everything written in the book. Then there's no point making notes. That notes and book is the same. The thumb rule of notes is condensation. If you can condense the data, which is you can see how in one slide I have pushed in these basic things which were written on 5 to 6, 7, 8 different slides. This is called notes making. I literally make notes in front of you. This is called condensation. A lot of different things I brought it together, and it has to be crisp. It has to be straightforward. If you are making very lengthy notes, it is not school. It is not the way you go for head. That is the basic point. It should be very straightforward. Everybody has a different way of notes making, and it should be efficient. Efficiency is the word in that regard. Okay. The democratization of countries, we'll discuss that. Not related to that, we will discuss. Okay. Can I start for the I am now not going to wait. Still, I think 2025 are missing. So if they will break the flow, we all agree that I will ignore them. Right? This much power you give me to ignore them? Sure, sir. Okay. Now, now, what I need to discuss with you are these words. But out of these three words, there is an ideology and two are systems of production. Can anybody tell me what is the ideology and what are the systems of production? What is the ideology in these three words? Marxism. This is a ideology, and communism and socialism come within Marxism. They are not in themselves different, but they are part of this Marxist ideology. So the bigger word is Marxism. Marxism. Now understand one thing very, very clearly and very straightforward. Listen to me very clearly. See, this discussion is purely for UPSC, that to GS level, because to understand Marx, there are multiple departments which are doing research, and till today, what Marx said is being understood. And there is also not one type of Marxism. There is something called vulgar Marxism, there's something called structural Marxism, there's something called non-structural Marxism, there's something called the economic reductionist Marxism, there's something called class struggle based Marxism, there's something called British school of Marxism, there's something called Fabian Marxism, there's something called what we call as Althusserian understanding of Marxism. Marxism has multiple forms. But what I am going to do here is I will bring everything down to a level which will explain what is happening in Russia and thereon. UPSC will not ask you to write a question or write a short note on Marxist ideology, write an explanation of Marxism. What is Marxism are questions which the optional exam also does not ask for. Some of you are already reading Marx because for political science optional, for history optional, for example, what we call as sociology, Dostoevsky, you have Marx as very major thinkers. PSIR, same thing, major thinkers. For anthropology, there will also be Marxist ideology. Within Marx, there will be in every optional which has some form of political theory. There will be yes, Durkheim, Weber, Marx, standard people which you have to learn, this is not something very new or radical. Marx you study in all places, but understand this point also, which is that they all are deriving from the concept of Marxism. They are deriving from the concept of Marxism. What Karl Marx said, they are deriving from it. So what I'm telling you is not a comprehensive survey of Marxist ideology or Marxism as a concept or something very big. I am telling you GS level Marxist ideology, and that is more than enough. Do we understand this point? Do we understand this point? Agreed? Okay, perfect. Agreed. Very good, very good, very good. First thing, non-comprehensive. Now, in order to understand Marxism, you need to understand Karl Marx first. So, Karl Marx is a thinker who is a German Jew. And the problem Karl Marx generally had, was that he was too radical for his own country. So Karl Marx is a Jew, he's a German, but the German state is not very comfortable with Marx staying there. So first he will flee to France and then last in the end up in London. And in London he will seek refuge with his very good friend named Friedrich Engels. Friedrich Engels is a very good friend of Karl Marx, and Engels' father was an industrialist. More than that, Marx did not have a lot of money. Marx did not have a lot of money. And therefore, he used to even borrow the coat which was needed for Karl Marx to go into the British Library, which was considered very important. So what Karl Marx actually saw was that he saw the Industrial Revolution very closely. He saw the Industrial Revolution very closely, and he saw both sides. Engels, his father, having a lot of money, has what we call as the real power which they used to hold. And on the other hand, he saw the workers' plight, the workers' situation in England, the biggest, foremost industrial power in the world. He was able to see how Karl Marx, in that regard, was able to see how the slums, the children, child labor, the gender impact, the misery of the workers, he was able to see. So Karl Marx saw both the sides: the misery, the death, the destruction of lives and people, and he also saw the fancy nature, the money, the capital. He saw everything. And based on that, he wrote 2 to 3 very interesting texts. One is called the Communist Manifesto, which everybody talks about. The Communist Manifesto. Then there's something called the 18th Brumaire, which not a lot of people talk about, but it is the 18th Brumaire, which is a satirical piece on France in which he actually introduces socialism. And the most studied and the most interesting of what he did, which is Das Kapital, or what we call as Das Kapital, the capital, the capital, which is basically the basis of, the industrialist revolution, which is, or industrial revolution, which is capital, which is, there's a difference between money and capital, which is that money is something which you have but is not invested. It does not generate assets. Capital generates asset. This is the book, The Capital. You can read it. It is available on Amazon, 3 volumes. Capital is asset. Any money which can create assets for you is capital. So now this is the political context or the social context of Marx, that Karl Marx saw the Industrial Revolution firsthand. Anybody has any issue in this? I don't care when was he born, where was he born, how many wife, how many children, grandfather, mother, father. I don't care. I only care about his context. Anybody? Why Karl Marx left Germany? Because he was hounded by the state. He was talking about too radical an idea. I will discuss, Chandra Yogi, why CPIM is called Communist Party of India, Marxist, and MNL is also there. I will discuss with you. If communism itself comes under Marxism, because you can be a communist party, but you can either follow Lenin or you can follow Marx. Issue totally different. Don't jump. Go with me. Misery point and death. Everybody knows that industrial revolution only produces death and destruction for this. This is the social impact. So I think we understand why Karl Marx was writing what he was writing. I'm trying to say this, that every man is a product of his times. So it's not that Karl Marx was lying in India or was sitting in Africa or was sitting in Australia and then writing about Marxism or the Industrial Revolution. He was very simply writing about it because he saw it. Extreme form of communism is Marxism. No, don't do that. Don't do that, Monica. No. That is, Marxism is an ideology. Communism is something which is inbuilt into it. I will tell you. Wait, what is the issue? Tell me if you understand this much. Can you tell me that you are up against and you are up with this? Because it's a very complex thing. Okay. Now there, Marx uses or divides the whole world. See, the core ideology of Marx is called dialectical materialism. So he is a student of Hegel, who's an dialectical idealist. But these things are too high to be taught here in with regards to what is the concept of dialectical idealism and how is it different with dialectical materialism. But to give you a very simple idea, Hegel, who was the teacher of both Friedrich Engels and Marx, argues that ideologies, when they clash, change comes. Dialectical idealism. Idealism means ideas are important. Dialectics, the word in Hindi is dwand, or in English you call it a type of dilemma or contradiction. So dialectical idealism says that when ideas change and clash, things change. This much makes sense. In a way, he is also right that when ideas, which is democratic and autocratic, when they clash, change comes. Is this making sense? You have to be here in a feedback loop with me. Very big words I'm using. So, in a way, when ideas clash, things change in history. That is what Marx's teacher is saying, Hegel. But Marx said no. Marx said no. Vivek, pay attention, stop typing, pay attention. I'm going slowly only. I can't go slower. I would have to speak slower. So, first things first, the teacher of Marx said dialectical idealism. Idealism is the concept of ideas clashing to produce change. But Marx said no. Marx believed in dialectical materialism. He believed that when economic forces clash or economic forces develop contradiction, it is then that change comes. And Marx substantiated on this concept through two words and his way of dividing history. So he's a dialectical ideal, he's a dialectical materialist. Who is right and wrong? There's no right and wrong in philosophy. Hegel is also right, Marx is also right in their own places. They have their own examples. Now, Marx used two words. Mode of production. Please pay attention. Again, very important. Don't be distracted. Can look out the window later. Which is mode of production and means of production. Mode of production and means of production. What Marx argued that all of history can be divided into two basic words. Mode and means. Mode is how the production is organized or done, and means is through what means or the basic unit of labor. Basic unit of labor. I'll give you a very simple example. We live in capitalist mode of production. As we today live in capitalist mode of production. So the means of production is going to be what? The means of production is going to be what? Not money, not factory. What is the word? Not capital. Yes, workers. The physical, the means is the worker. All machines are useless. All property is useless. All land is useless. Everything is useless if we don't have people to work with. So the word proletariat or worker or labor is the means. Automated machines still need a person to produce that machine. So don't give me fundas. Listen to me. So very straightforward point. Mode of production is how it is done, and means of production is the basic unit of labor, which is a worker. I'll give you an analogy and then you can understand it. If the mode of production is a car, what will be the means of production? If the mode of production is car, means of production is going to be what? Not driver. Pratyaksh has already got it. Very good, Amrit. It is not worker. It is not engineer. Very good, Jyoti. Perfect. Very good. Not car factory worker. It is not the engine. Yes, Lalita. Very good. Again, Avni. Very good. Very good. It is petrol. You can have the driver, you can have the machine, you can have the steering wheel, you can have the clutch, you can have everything. But if there is diesel and petrol or electricity in that car, will it work? No. So this is how Marx understands it, which is that there's a mode and there's a means. There's a mode and there's a means, which is that how it works and the basic unit of labor. Car, petrol. Any other example? So you want to play CSAT with me? So I'll give you another example. So very simply, straightforward. Okay, agriculture is the mode. So what is going to be the means? Again, seed. It is going to be labor. It is going to be the farmer. If there is land, if there is seed, if there is water, if there is machine, if there is no labor, who will bring these things together? It's not hard. It's a very straightforward concept. That person has to be the one who does everything. Mostly in Marxian idea, means of production is the human element. If there is no seed, what the farmer will do? He will then just water his plants. He will just lie down. You are going into a small element of production. He will lie down. But if the seed is available, will the seed automatically sow itself? You tell me. See, if you are going to nitpick, then what are you trying to do? You're trying to undercut Marxian ideology. You're trying to undercut Marxian ideology. Does really Marx care what you say? What are you trying to do here? What are you trying to do here? You're trying to say, sir, you are trying to say it is humans. No, I say seeds. So by doing that, what will happen? In Marxian ideology, it will always remain the farmer, because the human element brings everything together. You can have a factory, a machine, the land, the everything. Land, labor, a capital enterprise, it is called, right? But in that land, labor, capital enterprise, it is the labor which matters. Because that is a very good example of very simply how America was. Land was there, resources were there, everything was there, but labor was not there. That is why slavery was needed. So I don't know what are you trying to do here, but whatever you're trying to do here is that straightforward. Mode will be the larger concept. Means is going to be the human element, not always human, but mostly in Marxian ideology, humans are important, and the human element brings everything together. So very simply, land is operational only if labor is available. Machines are operational only if labor is available. Straightforward concept. I don't want to go into this further. It's a very straightforward concept. The larger way of producing is agriculture, and or rather is the mode of production, and the lower or what actually runs it is means of production. Say best example, car petrol. Car can only work with petrol. You can have everything, but if no petrol, that car is useless. So can I now talk about how he divides history? If we have self-contradicted each other and found happiness in it, can we do it? Okay. Mode, how things are organized, and means is through me. What is the basic unit of labor? Yes, aeroplane, kerosene. Yes, very good. You have lamp, oil, diya, bati, whatever you want to call it. The simple straightforward point is it is always going to be the thing which is needed to run it. Okay. Yes, hospital, doctors. Very good, perfect, great. He said 110. Logical reasoning, we get everything. Great, perfect. You find as many analogies as you want. Yes, very good, it's very good, perfect. School teacher, government, prime minister, nation, constitution. Very good, perfect. Well, now we understand. Very good, perfect. Okay. Yes, Marx will be extremely proud, literally proud. Yes, court, advocates, judiciary system, judges. Yes, very good, perfect, great. Now what Marx does, is that he yes, G20 PM, perfect. Everything perfect. Whatever you say. Yes. G20 can only work if the prime minister is there. Yes. Very good. Perfect. Now, Marx now divides the whole of human civilization into three which have existed and two which are going to come there. The first mode of production, according to Karl Marx, was primitive. It's called primitive accumulation. It's called primitive accumulation. Primitive communism is a little bit a derivative term. It's called primitive accumulation. Primitive accumulation is the mode is hunting and gathering, and the means would be early humans, which is hunters and gatherers. Hunters and gatherers. Thereafter, in different books, you will find different sequence, but doesn't really matter. The second mode of production, according to Marx, and it is a very Eurocentric thing, not basically existent in India, but a very Eurocentric thing. According to him, was the mode of slave-based mode of production. But he doesn't mean slaves here, black slavery. He means Roman and Greek period. And for him, the means were slaves. But not the way we see at slaves. In India, there was Dasa Dasi tradition that ways. It's a loose way of calling them slaves. This is not, it's basically bonded labor in a way. Then Marx argued that this gave the way to the third mode of production, which is feudalism. So the means is going to be what? Come on, tell me. You know the means. The means is going to be what? Very good. Serfs or bonded agricultural labor. So it is going to be the serfs. Here the bonded labor means bonded human. Peasants don't exist in the feudal period. There is nobody called a peasant who owns his own property. That is a vassal. So you have hunting, gathering, hunters and gatherers, Roman slave-based production, slaves, and feudalism and serfs. Now, what Marx argued was, we now have reached the fourth mode of production, which is capitalism, and means is worker or proletariat, whatever you want to call it. Proletariat or worker, same word. Proletariat or worker, same thing. Proletariat, worker or labor, same thing. So according to Marx, this is the present state. Across the world, economic change based on mode and means change was the driver of human civilization. And that is why if some of you have actually dwelled into Marx and have a little bit of academic understanding of him, he's called an economic reductionist. That he brings everything down to economics. Everything can be explained through economics. He reduces everything to economics. Your mother is beating you because of economics. Economic determinism. Yes. That your mother is beating you because economics. Marx would say everything can be explained because of economics. That is one of the problems. That is one of the problems of Marx, but we are not here to have that discussion. Anybody has any issue in digesting the fact that we have reached, I don't care first, second, third. I care we have reached the fourth mode of production, which is capitalism, and workers and proletariats are the means of production. Anybody has any issue in understanding this? Digested? No issues. Very good. Now understand this point. Capitalism has certain characteristics. Capitalism, for him, and this is basically vulgar Marxism if you want to be very precise, for him is the concept of base superstructure. According to Marx, capitalism works when the worker, who is the base, works for the superstructure, which is the industrialist and the modern nation state. Basically, capitalism is a factory-based mode of production in which the base works, but they get nothing out of it except wages. But the concentration of wealth happens in the superstructure. So according to Marx, the base is everything. The superstructure comes up over the base. But without the workers, the nation state and the industrialists are nothing. But they never get any form of credit or any fruits of their labor. And therefore, capitalism is an inherently exploitative system of production. The state embodies the interest of the state embodies the interest of the industrialist. Workers have no fruits of labor. Inequality and poverty are the two basic features of capitalism. Are we, or is Marx wrong in saying this? Is Marx wrong in saying this, that it creates haves and have-nots? The industrialists are the haves, have-nots is the proletariat. He is, in a way, totally right to say that capitalism is inherently exploitative, because capitalism is based on profit, it is based on interests, or what is called self-interest, it is based on greed, it is based on private property. And I again don't need to give you an example. We live in a country where there is a lot of inequality. So 5% of the population may be controlling, not even 5, 1% of the population may be controlling 99% of all wealth in India, and that is true for US, true for most of the countries. Very straightforward. Capitalism is inherently exploitative, and that can never change. Proletariat means worker. So that can never change. That can never change. It is like basically asking a tiger to become a vegetarian, which is that you try to make it vegetarian, but still it will remain a carnivore. Same way, capitalism can do a drama that it is pro workers, that is called early socialism. That it is pro worker, we will get social security schemes, we will give you health insurance. But who is destroying the health of the worker? Who is destroying the health of the workers? Who is destroying the health of the workers? The capitalists. But then they do a drama that yes, okay, we are giving you health insurance. So capitalism destroys the worker, but then it can do a drama that it is not trying to do it. Marx says yes, state promotes industrialists. That is also a very standard thing which is there. The standard which is there, and that is true also. Modern nation states embody their industrialists. Again, something which we already understood and we saw as an impact of the industrial revolution. So till this point, everybody understands what I'm trying to say, which is that capitalism is inherently exploitative system. Because now I will move to class conflict, class consciousness. Okay. Now, but what Marx argues is that once the industrial revolution, which is a prerequisite is a prerequisite for change, will reach a certain point, and when it will reach a certain point, which is its maturity, because maturity, then class conflict or struggle will automatically develop. And that is because of class consciousness. Now I need to discuss with you what are these words. Class consciousness and class struggle. Now pay attention. Very, very complex terms in Marxist ideology, but I'm trying to give you a simple understanding. And I'll try to explain it to you at the level of us, and then you will understand it better. So you all are part of my class because you join at 5 o'clock in the evening. By virtue of being in, or by virtue of joining this session, you become part of my class. Yes or no? So you are my class. So the same way, if you work for an industrialist, by virtue of working in an industry or any form of labor, you become a working class. You are here, my class, because you come here at 5. So you're my class. And these people work for the industrialists. So they are working class. Becoming a class is easy because you just have to be there. You just have to be there. But becoming class conscious is difficult and needs a certain process. I'll give you an example of class consciousness being there and not being there. So we all of us who are here, who are listening to me right now, we were going down a street. All of us were going down a street. And there were certain thugs, gunde, goons on the side. Now, whilst we all were going, you were just with me because you all were part of my class. Now, what happens is that one of you, for example, last comment is from Amrit. Amrit is picked up by these goons. And these goons start to misbehave with Amrit, start to beat him up. Now what happens is that we all look towards Amrit. We see him getting mishandled, but we all say, not our problem. And we go on. Very modern consciousness which is there, which is that you don't care for the other person. We all didn't care for Amrit. We just went forward and let the goons beat Amrit. Now, this is called being a class but not having class consciousness. You were not able to connect with Amrit. According to you, he was just a random part of the class. He got picked up. It was not your problem. Now, next day again, we go down the street and Anandu is picked up. He is also beaten up. Amrit now does not say anything. Thereafter, Sai is picked up. Thereafter, Amit is picked up. Thereafter, Muhammad is picked up. Thereafter, Rahul is picked up. Sayyid is picked up. One by one, all of us are in a way harassed by. Prasanna is picked up. You are harassed by these goons. But what happens is, after, for example, we are 200, after all of us have been picked up and in a way mishandled, when it will again be the moment of Amrit to get picked up. Now, what is common to all of us is the shared experience of that harassment. That harassment, the pain which Amrit got first time, we didn't care. But now all of us have it. We now understand. Now this time when Amrit is going to get picked up, we all look towards the goons, but this time we all go after the goons and beat them up. What we have done is called collective action. And the day we stood up for Amrit, we transformed from a class to a class conscious group. We got class consciousness. Now you understand this analogy, that why did we respond, which was a shared revenge feeling we wanted. Now let me put it into the terms of Marx. Marx argues that what capitalism does initially is pits workers against worker. You all are competing with each other. Every worker is competing with the other worker for the work. But over a period of time, every worker will get work, and what he will get is only one thing, which is exploitation. So over a period of time, the exploitation of the capitalist class will become a shared experience of the working class. And the day the workers are going to realize, okay, it is not the intra rivalry which we have, which is actually which brings us together, or by just being a working class, we are part of this class. What actually links all of us is the shared exploitation of the capitalist order, the shared exploitation of the capitalist system. That is the moment in which the workers of the world will unite. And the day the workers of the world will unite, class struggle will start. When every worker, despite his nationality, despite his language, despite his where he lives, when every worker will realize that the workers are all exploited irrespective of whatever country you are in, the workers of the world will unite, and then there will be class struggle, and the capitalist system will be toppled, and the socialist revolution will happen. This is Communist Manifesto for you, this is 18th Brumaire for you, and this is the beginning of Das Kapital. That according to Marx, the moment the class conflict and struggle will automatically develop because of class consciousness, and for class consciousness to develop, you need collective action. Once collective action comes through, you believe that the class has developed consciousness, which is a very difficult way of saying it. Marx, what he says, class for itself and class in itself, which is the concept that it is a class for itself. Now it has become a class in itself. Initially, it was just a class. Now it has become a class in itself. Now workers have united. Basic point is just to bring out all this funda out of this discussion. Very simply, capitalism is exploitative. Capitalism is, yes, realization is consciousness. Capitalism is exploitative, and working class will realize the shared experience of exploitation. And when the shared experience of exploitation will come to them, working class will unite, workers of the world unite, and that will produce the socialist revolution, and capitalism will be destroyed. And that is what I need to discuss with you, which is the fifth mode of production will be introduced, which is called socialism. So here they are class, here they have become class conscious, and here there is class struggle. Does this make sense? Because I want to discuss socialism and communism with you. What is then socialism and what is the communism concept? Did this make sense? I'll tell you what is the difference between socialism and communism. That is, Sai, don't move forward. I have to explain that to you. Please tell me, is this making sense? Very difficult concepts. I'm bringing it to this level. Very straightforward, I'm telling you. Again, don't use, Abhijit, these words you don't know. I know you don't know, which is socialism is the antithesis of capitalism. Thesis, antithesis, surrogate synthesis, and the concept of synthesis are totally different concepts, which I don't want to even talk about. It's a very difficult concept, and I can discuss it, but that is of no purpose to you. Very straightforward. That thesis meets antithesis when we have synthesis, which is, yes, the thesis is capitalism, the antithesis is socialism, and the socialist revolution, communism, is the synthesis. But there's something also called surrogate synthesis, and that is a very difficult, you, as I said, you don't know the implications of these words, heavy words. So very simply, can you please explain? Then pay attention. Capitalism is exploitative. Workers first fight amongst themselves. They realize what links them is exploitation. They come together, they start to struggle, and that leads to socialist revolution. I can't be more blunt in saying it. That is the easiest way you can say it. Is this making sense? Okay. Now, capitalism is exploitative, inequality driven, inequality driven. The exploitation of working class and their uprise started happening in which country first? Ragini, all across Europe, but the example will be Russia, but it will start in England first. This, see, don't, this, you're asking me an objective question for an ideology. There are two different things. Vivek, I'm coming to the fifth mode. Wait. Writing it in caps will not change anything. So patience. I have to tell you fifth mode. So wait. Inequality driven and the concept of state embodies interest of the industrialists, and very simply, workers are under stress. Now what Marx is arguing, that through class struggle the first change will come, and that change will lead to socialism, which will come when workers will unite and topple the capitalist order, and that will produce socialism as the fifth mode. Now, what is the fifth mode of production? Socialism is, now pay attention, a system in which the state embodies the interest of the worker, private property becomes public property, state driven enterprises, PSUs, and the task of the state is to redistribute property and wealth and bring equality. So socialism is the first step to the ultimate, which is communism. There's a difference between socialism and communism. Socialism is a transitionary step. Socialism is a transitionary step towards communism. And the basic public sector undertakings, the basic things which will be, state embodies the workers' interest, public property and public enterprises will be there. Public sector undertakings, MTNL, BSNL, BHEL, HAL, and the task of the state is going to be very straightforward. Redistribute the property and wealth and bring equality. Which is that if we are 5, I have 4 cars and 10 houses, and you have all of you have one house and only 0 cars. What the state is going to do is going to redistribute. Give each of us 1 house, will give each of us 1 car, and will give each of us exactly same, what we call as exactly same income. So the socialist, it's a socialist mode of production. Yes, it is. It's a mode of production. And the means remains the same. Means remains the same, worker, but within state enterprises. Within state enterprises, not within private enterprises. The concept of PSUs comes from this. Why would the state do that? Because the state now does not embody the interest of the industrialists. The industrialists have been toppled. The workers now control the government. So when the workers will start to, the worker representatives will start to control the government, redistribution of wealth and property is going to become the notion of the state. And that is why we are a socialist country. Which are the two DPSPs which talk about socialism? Which are the two DPSPs which talk about socialism? Socialism, which two DPSPs talk about it? Come on, polity is always strong. Not 39A and B. Mm. 39B and C. Not A and B, but B and C. Which is that redistribution of wealth and not having concentration of wealth in few hands. This is the concept, right? Socialism is a transitionary step. Is a transitionary step. So what Marx is arguing is that from capitalism, we will move to socialism. And from socialism, once equality has been achieved, everyone has equal property, wealth. Then, according to Marx, the state will dissolve itself as it is not needed, and we'll go to the sixth mode of production. And according to him, the last mode of production, which is called communism. Communism, which is a totally utopian concept, cannot exist, will never exist, and hasn't existed ever. Neither is China capitalist, neither is China a communist state, neither was the Bolsheviks or Russia a communist state. They call themselves communists, but they're actually socialists. And China is not even that. Communism is, or communist state is, classless, stateless mode of production where everyone works for everyone. What is needed is given, but no surplus is needed or given. Basically, whatever you want, you will get. If it is your need, you need one car, you will give in one car. Nothing more, nothing less. So there's no concept of class. Everyone's equal. And that is the way it is going to be there. Now, one thing very straightforward. And this is a very important point I'm trying to say. Communism cannot exist, so don't try to make it work. Don't ask me questions, sir. How can classless, stateless society be there? Can't be. It can't be. It is a utopian. It's a totally made up illusionary concept. Socialism can exist. Socialism can exist. Communism can't. Understand this point. I'm now bringing everything together. This is making sense? I hope. I'm bringing everything together, which is that Marx saw the very bad impact of capitalism on society, he came up with the concept that everything which has changed in the world since the time immemorial has very simply developed because of the fact that it is a concept of economic change. He starts from primitive communism, he goes to slave based production, he moves to feudalism, and then he says that we have reached capitalism. Capitalism will inherently see and try to understand, to a worker who thinks that there is no future, to a worker who has not seen the light in the end of the tunnel, the worker who's working day night without any form of what we call as savings. If Karl Marx says that this is not the reality you have to live in, would the worker actually believe him? Or would actually Marxian idea become very, very popular? Yes. Yes, because now the worker thinks that yes, there is a future where everyone is equal. And what Marx said was, the day every worker realizes that he's been exploited, you form political associations and then you become a trade union, and trade unions will fight elections, and then they will in a way topple the capitalist order. The nature of the state will change from capitalistic social to capitalistic bourgeois oriented to a proletariat state. And once the proletariat state is going to come, it will work to give everybody equal things. And once everybody is equal, then the state is not needed and the state will dissolve itself and everybody is going to be equal. That is communism. State will dissolve itself. No nation state will exist. No, again, you're asking me, how does it work? It can't work. The point is that communism inherently cannot work. So very simply, socialism and communism are two things which could have come if everybody followed Marx's idea. The difference between socialism and communism is very straightforward. In socialism, you still have a state. It is run by the worker and it does for the worker. Its task is to bring equality. But communism is when you've already achieved equality. There is no state, there is no class, everybody is equal. Communism is not extreme left ideology, but if you're a communist, you are more radical. Naxals are communists because they believe that stateless classless society needs to be there. Communism sounds good. See, understand this point. Marx never wanted to fight elections. It is his understanding which is now in front of everyone. Now people will use his understanding to now fight elections and try to mobilize the workers. Understand this point very clearly, because you will not find this explanation anywhere. See, post-industrial revolution destitution, primitive accumulation, slave mode of production, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, communism. Proletariat revolution is in response to capitalist domination. Class will become class consciousness with class collective action. But for you who are fundamentally not able to understand the difference, socialism is a transition from a bourgeois domination to a state embodying the workers' interest. Democratic socialism is something which he thought about. Social organizations controlled and regulated by the state or the government so as to ensure welfare, equality, and equal opportunity for the people. The means of production are collectively and socially owned through public property, PSUs. And once this task has been over, when everybody is equal, that will never happen in this world. He said that from socialism, we will move to communism. Ultimate goal of the proletariat revolution, classless, stateless society, dismantling all elite privileges. People work in communal factories, produce goods which are distributed to whoever needs them. See, understand this point. Bourgeois means working industrialist. Understand this point. Equality literally means equality. You and me are equal, which you aren't and which I am not. Understand this point. Very simply, straightforward. It's good to be a socialist, but it's dangerous to be a communist. Understand this point. This is why UPSC wants you to know these ideologies, because people tend to say that socialism is bad. As an IS officer, as the future of India, would you want people in India to be having access to wealth? Would you want social security schemes to work well so that people are equal? Do you want equal opportunity for everybody? Do you want everybody to be equal when it comes to social opportunity, economic opportunity, or form of any opportunity? If you want that, then you are already a socialist. Because socialism is about bringing equality. How do we achieve it and how much do we achieve it is totally subjective. Partially, yes, if you're Vivek saying right now, still, then I don't get it. Then what are you do? You want to be a public servant. You have to do good for the people. So if still there is a partial yes, then there's a dangerous tendency. We don't want, nobody wants. How will they pay for workers? Again, Santosh, there is no answer for that question. How will communism pay for workers? These are all utopian ideas, never came into existence. I want equality in opportunity, but not in wealth. So the inherent capitalist is speaking. The problem is this only. This is why communism can never come. Because capitalism is in our blood. The day when I say to you, I will take away your property, your father's property, your grandfather's property, that is why land reforms in India never worked. Never worked in India, because we basically are too capitalist when it comes to land. So you are already speaking the language of capitalism. And that is why, no, don't need to read Das Kapital. The simple point is, why is it dangerous to be communist? I'm coming to that. Simple point is, when you say, sir, okay, I want equal opportunity for everybody, but I don't want everybody to be equal, because then it means that my property will be taken. Then you're being a hypocrite. That is literally being a hypocrite. That yes, Article 15, 16 I believe in, but iska matlab ye nahi ki sab ek ho jaye, that everybody is equal. This is being a hypocrite. Why is communism dangerous? Because communists say state does not need to exist. That we dismantle the state, that we remove all things. That is very dangerous. Being an IS officer, if you say that I want to dismantle the government of India, does it actually make sense? Then you are actually being, nobody in the world wants to be a, you should never be a communist. Communist parties are, see, they and understand one thing. Communist Party of India doesn't mean that they want communism. It's a way of saying, it's a fashionable word. People, half of India today, who forward WhatsApp messages, the WhatsApp university crowd, they don't even know the aim of Marxism. They have no idea what is socialism. And then they actually don't understand communism also. So very simply, understand this point. If you want to be a civil servant, don't be a hypocrite in saying that, no, sir, I want to be a civil servant, but I don't want to be a socialist. Because what you are getting recruited by the government of India is for that Article 39 B and C. So here, I'm not here to push in socialist ideals into you. What I'm trying to say is, why does UPSC find this area relevant? Why they actually wanted you to understand this point? I don't care if you're a socialist or a communist or if you're a hypocrite. You're my student. The point is that you need to understand the fact that socialism and communism are two stages. Stage 1, socialism, communism, stage 2. No country in this world is communist, and even the Bolsheviks, the Russian Revolution, actually wanted to be so they say that it is socialist, but they were actually not even socialists. They used the workers to come to power. That is what we have to discuss. That is where Lenin comes through. I want to discuss Leninism now. But if before I do that, very simply, straightforward. In the world, there can be multiple types of socialism also. One is called market socialism, where the best example of market socialism is Amul, is a cooperative where the people and the state and the private enterprise all come together. So what quantity and how much and how it will be produced is decided by the market socialist. Same way you have democratic socialism, which comes out, and what Nehru was, and what is a very good ideal in our constitution and in our freedom fighters, from Subhash Chandra Bose to Nehru to everyone else. It's not just Nehru, it's Subhash Chandra Bose also, which is that you have to be a mixed economy. Socialism through democracy. This is called Fabian socialism. Fabian socialism is that you bring gradual change. That is what we do. We are Fabian socialists. India is called a Fabian socialist, moderate type socialism, democratic socialism. That we want to bring change, but not quickly. Slowly we'll do. We bring equality, that is for sure. But then there is something called libertarian socialism. This is the most radical form of socialism. No hierarchy, no bureaucracy. Private property should go away. Public goods everybody will have. But the point is, very simply, you will never be asked a question to explain socialism or communism. But you need to understand the fundamental difference. Marxism is an ideology. Socialism, communism is the concept which believes, or which was created by Marx to say socialism leads to communism. State which tries to controlled by workers is called socialist control, and there is no state, it is called communist. Can I now talk about Lenin? Abhijit, Gandhi's statelessness and Marx's statelessness is very different. Very, very different to each other. Very different to each other. See, Kampal, that is not my thing to say if the government is trying to remove the word socialist, or as a civil servant should be desired to remove socialism. See, understand this point. You tell me one thing. Today, if I remove the word republic from the preamble, India will cease to be a republic. Will India cease to be a republic? If I just remove word republic. See, this is the problem. This is actually the problem, which is that people don't understand socialism or communism or Marxism, but they talk about it quite a lot. Because how you asked me a question that, sir, how can it be that CPIM it can be there? That if it is a Communist Party of India, then how can it be Marxist also? See, preamble is non-enforceable or not enforceable. I'm not talking about constitutionality of here. If I today say that India is not a republic, will it not be a republic? What is India is you and me. We, the people of India. So if I'm telling you, if the constitution doesn't say socialist and secular, you will not remain socialist and secular. I don't care what is happening in politics. I don't care what happened recently. I'm not even talking about that. If the only, so you, when you wake up every day and your mother says that, would you like to have something? So you open the preamble and then say, okay, sovereign, socialist, democratic republic. So yes, democracy. Yes, I will eat something. Is this the way you live? So then why are you saying that if socialism has been removed, apparently, allegedly, then I should also not follow socialism? I'm not supporting, justifying, or telling you to be a socialist. I'm telling you UPSC's logic of asking this question or asking you to learn socialism. There is, see, if you believe in people's welfare, if you believe that in India our farmers should get justice, if you believe that workers in India should come out of slums, if you believe that people in India should have a basic standard of living, if you believe that people should have basic income, if you believe that every child in India should have equal opportunity to go to a school and should not have to be discriminated, if you believe that India should be one, and if you believe in unity and diversity, you believe in socialism. So it's not a different type of bird in the different market. So, sure, it promotes laziness. Chandrayojit Jyoti, this is your capitalism speaking. So what is the problem in being lazy? What is the problem in being lazy? This is your industrial time speaking. So, as I said, I really don't care if you believe in socialism or you believe in what I'm saying, or if you agree with me, you are disagreeing with Marx and Marx is dead. I don't care. Do you understand it? Yes, laziness is the worst thing. Capitalism, we should basically work throughout our lives till 60, 65 and then die. That is what you want. Na? So, end of story. Simple, straightforward point. Can we go back to Russia? Okay. Being lazy, you can't change your economic status. Perfect, Snehilata. Let's not be lazy. Let's be capitalism. That is why capitalism survives. This is capitalism speaking through you. There's something called internalization. How patriarchy speaks through women. This is capitalism speaking through you. Because you cannot fathom a society which can be socialist. But you are a socialist, you don't know it also. If I believe in the Constitution of India, DPSP is still there. My fundamental duties are there. I have fundamental rights from Article 15, 16 to 39 B and C and every fundamental duty. I am in a way socialist only. Forget it. Okay. What is the point of economy when people can't live happily? So now we are going into fundamental questions. So leave it. Okay. Now Marx says a lot of things. Marx says a lot of things. And in Marxism, there is a concept very straightforward that industrial revolution has to happen first, and then you will have the socialist revolution. That makes sense, or the communist revolution, whatever you want to call it. That makes sense because industrial revolution will drive up technology, it will make it more and more efficient, and will reach a certain level. Will reach a certain level of living and technology. And thereafter, it makes sense to go for a socialist revolution. This is what Marxism argues. Marxism, in a way, says there's a prerequisite to socialism, which is industrial revolution. Now, based on Marxist ideologies, there will be a party which will be formed in Russia. And that party will emerge in 1912, which will be called the Russian Revolutionary Parties, and the party will be called Social Democratic Labour Party. Social Democratic Labour Party. Now, this Social Democratic Labour Party, Social Democratic Labour Party, which emerges in 1912. Why was it able to emerge? Just to refresh your memory of Russia, why has it emerged? Or why is it emerging? It has emerged because of what? What is the reason why this has emerged? What allowed for the emergence of this? The October Manifesto. So trying to come back to this, the October Manifesto, Social Democratic Labour Party has emerged because now polls can happen. Now, within the Social Democratic Labour Party, which is inherently based on Marxist ideas, there will be a person called Lenin who will rise. Name Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin. Lenin will argue against the main ideology. The main ideology is Russia needs to have an industrial revolution, and then we will seize power and socialist revolution. Is it in line of Marxist ideology? The name of Vladimir Lenin is written there only, Vladimir Lenin. Is this in line with Marxist ideology? Come on. We've had a conversation about it, now at least apply it. Yes? Okay. Now, very simply, if that was going to be the case, the socialist revolution would come immediately or would need time? It would need time, or would it happen automatically, immediately? It would need time. It would need time because first industrial revolution, then socialist revolution. But Lenin saw that if we give time, Tsar is going to become more and more powerful and will appropriate more and more power. So Lenin argues that Russia does not need a industrial revolution but can go for socialist revolution first, then industrial revolution. And the people who supported Lenin are called the Bolsheviks. Bolsheviks are nothing but it means majority, and the people who believed in the main ideology are called the Mensheviks, the minority. See, the difference between Leninism and Marxism, which is basically Bolshevik and Menshevik ideology, is that Lenin says first socialist revolution, then industrial revolution, while the Menshevik says or Marxism says first industrial revolution and then second socialist revolution. Now, a lot of you have already understood why Lenin is doing what he is doing. He is in a hurry. He's impatient. Cannot wait for industrial revolution as Tsar and Russia may change. And to help Lenin, he had two very important deputies, Trotsky and Stalin. Trotsky and Stalin. So the Bolsheviks, which literally mean majority, were led by Vladimir Lenin. They were not Marxist and wanted a communist revolution immediately before achieving industrialization. Full-time leadership was with the revolution, and they had a paper called Pravda which talked about it. While the Mensheviks, which literally means minorities, opposed the leadership of Lenin and wanted to achieve complete industrialization and move to communism. The social revolutionaries, which are the third faction, wanted agrarian society, cooperatives. That was never going to work. Now, the important leaders of the Bolsheviks was Vladimir Lenin, who founded the Bolshevik faction, was the architect of the revolution, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But Russia needed to not become industrialist before communist. And that was the idea on which the Bolshevik revolution was based on also. Stalin, on the other hand, till Lenin was alive till 1924, Stalin will remain silent. Stalin will remain silent. But as soon as Lenin will die in 1924, Stalin will become his successor. And he is considered the one who destroyed the socialist communist impulse of Russia generally, and he became a dictator in the name of socialism, as bad as Hitler. And Trotsky was the one who actually was killed by Stalin later, because he was a real communist activist, a leader of the October Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. He was the one who will be on the ground actually negotiating with the Germans, negotiating with the people. So understand this point, and I'm telling you this right now itself. Lenin was an opportunist. Leninism was never going to work. Because if you introduce socialism first, as you said, a PSU will never become a private company. A PSU will never perform as high as a laissez-faire or free trade based, market based company. And therefore, what Lenin made sure in his haste was that he now bypassed the Industrial Revolution and he went for this socialist revolution. But under socialism, capitalism can never get nurtured. And therefore, Leninism was already flawed. It was flawed from the beginning, but it was more relevant at that point of time. Whilst the Mensheviks actually made sense, which is that industrial revolution needs to happen, Russia needs to come out of redemption payments, the standard of living needs to go up, we need to become like Britain, and then the socialist revolution would make sense. In Bolshevik revolution is though called a socialist communist revolution. It wasn't. It was Lenin capturing power in the name of socialism. And that is why, very simply, USSR was bound to fail. I'll tell you how USSR came through in 1924. But I'm trying to tell you something very important, that the basis of this revolution is flawed in itself. USSR would never be able to compete with the US, would never be able to compete with any other power, because USSR was a socialist country without having any industrial might itself. The real power which could actually become very powerful would have been the British. If the British could have gone to a socialist revolution, they would have become a socialist country, truly. So no country in this world is socialist. No country is in a way communist. They call themselves communist because that seems to be nice. Yes, Lenin's ideology works in the short term. He's an opportunist. Vladimir Lenin was an opportunist. And the Bolsheviks were opportunists, because as soon as Bolshevism will capture power, they will go for an election, they will lose seats. So they will remove the election. Stalin will kill everybody who was actually very close to Lenin, and he will introduce what is called collectivization, which actually was not even the concept of communism. And he will run the country like a dictator, because the USSR did not have the industrial might itself. So basically, to summarize what I've done till this point, does this make sense? It's not heavy, it's just technical. Let me bring everything together. Can I do it? Is this making sense? It's a very interesting discussion. You will not find this in books. You will not have this conversation with anybody. So that's why I'm having this conversation with you. Try to understand what we've done here, and we will thereafter start with February and October Revolution, and then talk about Great Depression, Treaty of Versailles, and Hitler and Mussolini tomorrow. But right now, I want to very simply talk to you about two things. Russia was the most unlikeliest of countries to have a Russian revolution or have a socialist revolution. Russia started as a very mighty country, projected power. Two humiliations. October Manifesto happens. October Manifesto creates the space for ideas to develop and parties to develop. A party which will develop will be called the Social Democratic Party. Social Democratic Party is based on Marxist ideology. For that, I now needed to explain to you what is Marxism. Marxism is the concept of understanding history through the eyes of economics, which is that every change has come because economic modes changed. The mode in which we live today is the capitalist mode, exploitative. So the workers will unite over that exploitation. They will go for a new world, which is the socialist world, in which the state will now not embody the interest of the what we call as the of the industrialist, but will now start to embody the interest of the worker. It will work for the equality of everybody. Once equality will be achieved, according to Marx, socialism will lead to communism, classless, stateless society, an idea which was already just something which could never exist. Thereafter, that socialism would in turn be the new idea which would become very common across Europe. Everybody started to talk about socialism, Marxian socialism. Workers will start to get united under trade unions. It was believed, and Marx predicted, that the first socialist revolution is going to happen in Britain. But it didn't happen. Rather, it happened in a place where it was unlikeliest to happen, because in a way, Russia is not an industrial country. But if Lenin followed Marx, then the socialist revolution, the Russian revolution, would happen after 50 years. So rather, what he did was he reversed the idea of Marx and into what we call as Leninism, which is that he said we can go for socialist revolution right now because that was in the interest of the party. Bolsheviks wanted to capture power, and that is the story of the Russian Revolution. In 1917, they will capture power, and that is Russia wasn't ready. Yes, Russia wasn't ready. But Lenin's ideology was more. If today I tell you that you study for 1 month and you will clear UPSC, and I tell you to study for 1 year and then clear UPSC, what will you choose? What will you choose? 1 month or 1 year? You will choose 1 month, because that seems to be a better concept. It seems to be a more lucrative concept. And that is what Lenin said. Let's go for socialist revolution and then we will go for industrial revolution. But what I've tried to argue is that is inherently flawed concept. Because with this industrial revolution, you can have market-based development, and then you go for a socialist revolution. The other way around is not possible, because capitalism can never nurture, the socialism can never nurture capitalism. So tomorrow when I come back, yes, Lenin was hungry for power. When I come back, I want you to remember two basic things: October Manifesto, the rise of Lenin, and basic Marxist ideology. If you want to revise, you can watch this video again, and also on the knowledge series on our YouTube channel, which is, we have a section which is called knowledge series. On knowledge series, there's one which is Marxism under world history. You can watch that also. Within 30 minutes, I've summarized everything, whatever I've said with regards to Marxism. Does this make sense? Can you now go for your webinar? We've not finished 7th module. We've reached 70%, 75% of it. Now we just need to see how Lenin captures power. But I hope now everybody understands what is Marxism, what is concept of communism, what is concept of socialism, how India is a socialist country in a way, mixed economy we already have, and what does that socialism word mean in the constitution itself. And more than that, what is the concept of Marxism and socialism and communism vis-a-vis each other, and what is Leninism. We all understand all of these things? Yes? Okay, perfect. So you can go for the webinar. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow, same time, and then on Saturday also. Thank you. Take care.